podcast, once again sitting down with Jim Ramazinski, Coach Ram, the head coach of the Evergreen Park Mustangs, who got their first win of the year in week 2 and did it in crushing 51-0 style. How are you, Coach?
Good. I'm feeling good.
Of course you are. You won 51-0 this weekend. How do you win a game 51-0? I mean, like, a lot of things have to go right for that, correct?
Yeah, we had a big first quarter. We started fast, which was good. We ended up getting a couple touchdowns in the first quarter. We took advantage of the other team's mistakes. We capitalized on them. We were able to get a defensive touchdown in the first quarter, which helps a lot. Fumble recovery, sack fumble, I should say, by Genesis Ward, and then he recovered it. So yeah, we were off to a really fast start, and that led to the score.
Is there a point in a game like that? You said you got out to a fast start, right, against Longwood, and you played them the year before. And I remember it was a big margin that year as well. So now at this point, you've got a lead. You're like, okay, we had a big margin victory over them last year. You know, I don't want to embarrass, but I also, I want my guys, if I take the foot off the gas too much, somebody might get hurt out there because they start not taking it seriously. So, like, how do you balance that?
Well, it was a good day because we had an opportunity to get a lot of guys out there to play more that maybe don't get as many snaps in the game. What you just said is actually pretty important because I said the same thing at halftime. I said, hey, listen, just because we're winning pretty considerably, you guys can't slow down because that is when injuries happen. And we were able to work a lot of different guys and get some more reps. And the big thing when you're up that big is make sure you just try and get out of there as healthy as possible. And, sometimes this team, Longwood, was great. They didn't do this. But sometimes when you're up big on a team, you start seeing opposing players, they get frustrated. And, I always worry about, hey, don't let their behavior dictate your behavior. But Longwood, it wasn't an issue at all. We did talk about that at halftime, though, just in the event.
Yeah, like if all of a sudden stuff starts happening out there, guys, it gets chippy. Remember, you don't want to add to it. Then it gets out of hand. Let's walk out of here with the victory.
You don't want a kid to get a penalty or do anything that's gonna not represent our program. And we did a great job of just kind of finishing the job. Longwood was very good, practiced very good sportsmanship throughout the game, and we were able to shake hands after the game, and everything worked out good.
That's awesome. Who's your big performers? Everybody? You have a giant list here? How do you figure this out?
Well, David Johnson, on not that many rushing attempts, he got to 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, so it was good to see him have a good game.
It's big because the running game was not working very well in week 1.
No, it was. We didn't have a great run attack week 1. Offensive line obviously stepped up a little bit, and kind of like what I said last week, we did have a good week of practice, and I think that carries over because, I'm not saying we would have potentially lost the game, but like by any, we would not have came out as crisp and fast as we did had we not had a good week of practice. But yeah, no, we had some big numbers. AJ Powell had a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Rowan Smythe threw 2 touchdowns, 1 to Powell and 1 to Caleb Kaiser. Caleb Kaiser also had a punt return for a touchdown. So it's pretty rare that you score in all 3 phases of a game, offense, defense, and special teams, but we were able to do that. Yeah, it was a good day. And even like little things, like we have a sophomore, Garrett Kazmirowicz, who's up on varsity, and he didn't see a ton of reps on week 1, but he got more this week. And, seeing him get his first catch as a varsity player.
That's awesome.
It builds confidence in young players.
Do the kids at the high school level get to keep the ball when they do something like that?
No, they cost too much.
You ever have a kid try to do that? Like, it's my first touchdown, coach. It's like, we only have 3 balls.
No, we have plenty, but they're not, it's not like giving out a golf ball or a baseball. There's a little bit of cost attached to each one. So no, and I have not had anyone ask me for a game ball.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. So, I want to go back to something you just mentioned about good week of practice, because you and I have chatted about it, but I don't know if we've ever gotten into it on the podcast. Talk a little bit about how important it is to get at it at practice, because you're always trying to figure out a balance of, I want these guys ready for the game. It's a long season. I don't want somebody getting a dumb injury in practice. But on the other hand, you don't want to take your foot off the gas, and you don't want everybody to just kind of go through the motions, because then they're not ready to play on game day. Talk about how you strike that balance.
Well, a lot of it is monitoring individuals and their specific needs. So, like, for instance, if you have a player who's a pretty premier guy in your program and, they're a little banged up, we take note of it. We take note of when everyone is, of course, but, you take note of it. But at the same token, football is not meant to be played at a slow speed, at half speed, or not even, obviously you have your walkthrough days, but you need to be going. And if you don't have that edge to you, because you don't develop it in practice, the reality is you're not going to win a lot of games. And if you got a team that's loaded with Division I players, maybe you can get away with it. But where our team is starting to understand more and more each week, I believe, that we are going to perform how we perform Monday through Thursday at practice. And it's been a stress point for us as coaches, and the players are aware, and they're stepping up to the plate, doing a good job with it. They just got to continue to do that.
Oak Lawn now, first home game. Before we even get into Oak Lawn, how important is it for your team to finally get in front of the home crowd? There's something different about that. You're going to have players that have not played a varsity game in front of their friends, and now they're finally going to get and do it. There might be an extra set of jitters even 3 games into the season, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to have a big crowd there on Friday night, and we actually, one of my coaches does a really good job of bringing that up all the time. And, he kind of, he'll say it like this. If he sees a kid, not going as hard as they should at practice, which, that's going to happen to everyone at some point. It happens to
everyone in every sport.
Yeah. We're trying to build consistency at all times with it, of course, but we understand things can happen. But he does a really good job of saying, hey, so you don't want to do this now, but on Friday night when everybody's here, you want to make sure you want to be out on the field. But if you don't do it right now, the way you're going to do it on Friday night, all those people that you're excited to see, they're going to see how you perform, and they're going to make their assessments, judgments, whatever you want to call it. So you better be ready to go, because you cannot just turn it on Friday night. And I anticipate a pretty big crowd, which is going to be awesome. Home game, first home game of the season. First time we're playing a game on the new field turf with the new scoreboard and all that. So it's going to be an exciting night. But at the same time, you do have to keep your focus. You have to understand what your job is. And obviously, the main thing we want to do is come out with a win.
Do you ever run into like a kid first time in that kind of situation? Because to me, I mean, there's certain milestones I would think for players. The first time you make a high school team, even if you're not on the varsity, the first time you play on the varsity, maybe a playoff game. There's certain things as they're moving along. Those are memories, and they're also big moments, right? How do you deal with it when you have a kid where you can almost see they're overhyped? Like they're doing too much. They may be going at a little bit too fast of a speed, or trying to do too much out there because everybody's watching and they want to have that moment.
Well, in order to be successful at a game, and this is something we could all work on, you got to just stay focused, stay calm, take the good with the bad and the bad with the good, and move on to the next play. And that's what we try and tell them. And, it's a stressful situation, especially when there's a big crowd. But that's what you want.
I mean, it's the fun of it, right?
Yeah, you want to
play in big stadiums.
You want those moments, and you're going to, you'll see kids here and there. They get under the lights and they get a little nervous. It doesn't bother me when it happens, because it's a natural thing. What would bother me is if it happened throughout the game. I could see the first couple plays, maybe you're, a little bit off, but you got to settle in at some point. We do our best to talk to each player that's out there, get them in a good mental space before the game starts, so they're ready to go.
Well, we just watched Caleb Williams overthrow a guy in his first or second series because he was all hyped up. And he even said afterwards, and here's a guy, number 1 overall draft pick, had preseason games. And, he's playing for the Chicago Bears. And he still had that little bit extra excitement, nerves, jitters, whatever it was. And, I felt like he settled down later in that game. Keenan Allen dropped the ball. I don't know what the guy never drops the ball. He drops the ball. They won the game. I'm getting on the Bears. Let's talk instead about Oak Lawn. Oak Lawn's 0-2. They're also a rival. 0-2 in those out-of-conference games sometimes doesn't really mean anything. I don't know what the competition was that they faced in the first 2 games. How do you assess them, and especially a team that you know very well generally? I mean, I'm sure there's a few new personnel changes, but how do you assess them? How do you look at this game going into it?
Well, they're still running the triple option, which is a little bit difficult to prepare for defensively because you don't see it. You will see it once a year, essentially. So you gotta like, it starts with that. Like, let's prep for what they're trying to do. From our offensive standpoint, you look at what they like to do defensively. You figure out what plays of ours are highest chance of success that we want to definitely include in our plays that we're running for the week. But, when we talk about a rivalry game, you got to to me, you got to throw away all what the records are, because the reality is in a high emotion game like this that both sides really want to win, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to show up and play the game of their life or who's going to show up and, kind of drop the ball. So, to put it in perspective, 2 years ago, this was the year before I got here. I know EP had a really good season. They did a great job. And Oak Lawn did not have a great record that year. On paper, it looked like a clear cut, EP should kind of dominate, and won the game, but only by, I believe it was 7 points.
I remember that game.
So I think 0-2, 1-1, why don't we just make it 0-0?
Right.
And, make it about Friday night. And whatever team goes out there, prepares better this week, will be ready to go, and will more than likely win the game. And that's the message we're trying to send all the times, that you can't overlook anyone. You got to be, like you said earlier, you got to have your foot on the gas at all times, because anything could happen on Friday night.
Your new superintendent, of course, was principal over at the rival school of Oak Lawn. And I'm just curious, is he hiding this week? How is this going? Is he just avoiding you? What is that like right now?
No, he'll be on our sideline.
I know he'll be on your side, but it's got to be weird for him.
I'm sure it is weird for him. He spent a lot of time there, and obviously he built a lot of positive relationships there.
Yeah.
So he's got, friends over there, just like, we as coaches, we have friends at other schools.
Yeah, but if he pops into the coach's room, are you just a little nervous? Like you're covering the chalkboard? What?
I don't think he'd go that. I don't think his loyalty would go that far. So I think just like everyone, Dr. Reardon's excited for the game. It's an exciting event for both schools, the kids involved, the players, the coaches. It should be a fun night.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, this game is a 7 p.m. game at home here in Evergreen Park. What's the prep like for the home game? A little different for you? Do you have a tradition that you've come up with now? I mean, you do live only a couple blocks from the stadium. Do you do anything special on home games?
Well, we don't leave the school.
Yeah.
Like our kids don't leave.
You live there till the game happens. They don't disappear. They don't go home for a little while.
No, I mean, we eat a team meal. We do walkthroughs. We stretch. We get ourselves going. There's some time for the guys to relax, get themselves mentally prepared. It's time for us as coaches to do some final game planning, but also it's time for us as well to just kind of sit together, talk about the game, but also just, hang out for a little bit beforehand. It's good for the team to kind of just get comfortable with each other beforehand. But no, I usually share a schedule with the boys the day before, or the morning of, with the specific plan for the day.
What's the key? Get out fast? Are we doing that again, or you got something
the key
different?
Is, let's see. Today's Tuesday, so the key is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Are we going to practice at the highest level we can? Because if we practice at the highest level we can, we'll be the most prepared we can be on Friday night. And I mean, it's just like anything. The more prepared you are, the better you're going to perform. So that's the key. And then Friday night, I think kind of you were alluding to this, not getting caught up in the big event that is happening.
Yeah. I mean, I would think this is their first big event and then homecoming in a couple of weeks, but this is an event today. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a ton of fun. Like I'm excited about it. I know our players are, our coaches, the school. That's another piece to this, a game like this. Like, don't, like you said with Caleb Williams a little bit ago, you want to be hyped up, but you can't be overly excited, because that's when you stop thinking and you start doing your responsibilities because you're just all over the place. So we're going to talk about that quite a bit this week, but yeah, we need to have a good week of practice leading up to the game.
All right. Coach Ram is going to get him ready, him and the rest of the coaching staff, and Oak Lawn will take the field at Evergreen Park, and the Mustangs will go up against them looking for a second win on the season. 7 p.m. start over at the high school. Going to be quite the event, and good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It's the EP Podcast. All things Evergreen Park. It's the EP Podcast. Evergreen Park.